If you want to read the original story, link is down below in the description.
Chapter 1. It was late at night as one Nora Valkyrie wandered the halls of Beacon Academy on a mission. Nora was a short girl with bright orange hair, curvy body that hid her well-developed and deceptively powerful muscles, and moderately large assets. She currently wore a black shirt with the word BOOP written across the chest area and bright pink short shorts covered in lightning bolt patterns that did nothing to cover her toned legs. This mission she was on was one of great importance, a matter of life and death. Nothing was of higher priority than her current task. Absolutely nothing would stop her from completing such an important task. What is this mission, you may wonder? Need pancakes. Nora was hungry. She was currently on her way to the kitchen to make herself a late-night snack as she had already eaten her emergency pancakes, and Ren was too asleep at the moment to make some for her. That was fine though. She could just go make some herself. It wasn't like she couldn't cook for herself. Mini flashback. It wasn't my fault. A slightly younger Nora pouted, now wearing her usual combat attire, as she and her closest bestest friend Ren, a young man of Asian-looking descent with black hair that had a single pink stripe, pink eyes, and wearing a green, black, and gold tailcoat and white pants, stood in front of a blackened stove. I just asked you to boil some water, Ren said in a tired voice as he palmed his face. And mini flashback. She could totally cook just fine. Wandering along the darkened halls of Beacon all by herself was a bit boring though, as she had nobody to talk to though, so she livened it up a little. I'm queen of the castle. I'm queen of the castle, she sang to herself as she cartwheeled down the last stretch of hallway and finally reached her destination. Yay! Time for pancakes, she cheered happily while rushing over to the massive fridge at the back of the room. Pulling open the heavy door with ease, she started to reach inside only to freeze. What's used to make pancakes again? She asked herself while scratching her head. Oh, I know. I'll just look it up. Nora reached into her pocket for her scroll, only to end up finding it missing. Oops, must have left it on my nightstand, she thought sheepishly, then pouted. That means I'll have to use a cookbook, but books are so boring. Drooping her head, she slowly shuffled over to where non-perishables were stored. When she got close though, she paused when she noticed the door was partly open and she could hear soft crunching sounds coming from inside. Curious, she quietly peers inside the doorway to see. Are those tails? Nora asked herself in thought as she gazed at the fluffy appendages lazily swaying through the air. There were 9 of them total. All mostly dark red in color with light blonde ends, and if she had to guess, around 8 feet long and very dirty. Each individual one though had a slightly different colored tint near the tips. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, light blue, white, and brown, that glowed ever so slightly. Following the tails to their source, Nora was further surprised to see them all connected to a single person. A young faunus boy. Maybe 7 or 8 years old, with messy blonde hair with red tips, wearing a tattered black shirt that hung off his skinny frame and equally tattered shorts. She couldn't see his face due to him looking away from her, but she could see that he was clutching a glowing red crystal in his hand that she easily recognized as burn dust. Wondering what he was doing with it, Nora's curiosity quickly turned to shock and horror as the child popped the whole thing into his mouth and started chewing. Spit that out. Reacting without thinking, she burst into the room screaming, causing the boy to snap his head in her direction and freeze, revealing glowing red eyes filled with terror and puffed up whiskered cheeks. In less than a second, Nora tackled the boy to the floor and was in the process of prying his mouth open. Limbs and tails flayed around wildly as he tried to squirm free, but thanks to Nora's impressive strength and his own lack of muscle didn't get far. Finally managing to get his mouth open, Nora was just able to see as the crunch-up crystals vanished down his throat, no doubt towards his stomach. To stop this, she tried to forcefully induce vomiting by sticking her fingers down his throat but was stopped when she felt a strong shock run through her body. Not really affected thanks to her semblance. Even stronger now because of it. Her reason for stopping was due to the fact the electricity was coming from the boy. His entire body was giving off bursts of static that shorted out the nearby electronics, burnt various food items, and even caused a few small explosions when it hit some miscellaneous dust crystals. Nora was brought back to reality when one of the kid's legs kicked her right in the crotch. Collapsing on top of him, her hands instinctively shot down to cover the hurting area. Unfortunately for the boy, that still left him trapped under her and now he was being smothered by her chest. It took him several seconds to squirm out and pull his tails free, but by then Nora had recovered from the blow enough to tackle him down again, this time from behind. Wrapping her arms around the squirming kid's arms and waist, she got herself into a sitting position with him held firmly into her lap. Feeling another shock run through her, she channeled the charge into her arms and held tightly as he squirmed and wriggled for several minutes until he finally tired himself out. She was surprised several times during this, but not enough to lose her grip this time, when he suddenly turned ice cold, then burning hot, shot both ice, fire, wind and even more electricity out of his mouth and even seemed to get several times heavier before returning to normal. She was never gladder for Nora than during this, as if she didn't have it she would have been badly hurt long before. Turning the now trembling boy so that he was facing her, Nora looked him over with a critical eye. How is he still okay? That dust should be burning him alive from the inside out. Focusing back on his face, the terror etched all over it caused her to wince internally. Please don't hurt me. I just wanted something to eat, he said with a heavy stutter as he looked towards the floor as his stomach growled loudly. Don't worry, I'm not gonna hurt you, Nora said as she stood up and let him go, much to his surprise. That surprise quickly turned to embarrassment as she then leaned in close and checked his forehead. Not finding anything unusual, she then checked his stomach where she found a large black sun-like tattoo across his belly, but other than that he was fine. What are you doing? He asked nervously, too tired and hungry at this point to run away and thus completely at the girl's mercy. Making sure you're okay. Duh. You just ate an entire burned dust crystal for sake. Yeah, you mean the spicy sea candy? Nora froze at these words. You thought it was candy? The boy nodded. Who told you that dust was candy? This nice man on a BB boat a long time ago. He even gave me some pea powdery kind that was super minty. Though he looked really shocked after I ate it and then left. Nora stood there, shocked, again, at what the boy told her. Someone tried to kill him by tricking him into eating ice dust. If I ever find that sick son of a bitch, I'ma break his everything real good, Nora thought darkly before focusing on the matter at hand. Deciding to drop the matter for now as if it hadn't hurt him so far, then it likely wasn't going to. Here, how about I get you some real food then? She offered while holding out her hand to him. Looking at her suspiciously for a few seconds, the boy's stomach roared once again and he reluctantly took her hand. Smiling happily, Nora led him out of the destroyed storage room and into the kitchen, where she plonked him onto a nearby chair and started rifling through a nearby cupboard until she pulled out a box labeled Pumpkin Pete's Marshmallow Flakes with a picture of a red-headed girl with green eyes wearing a bronze ringlet and a nervous smile on her face. By the way, I'm Nora. Nora introduced herself with a smile as she grabbed a jug of milk from the fridge. Naruto, the boy said in return as she placed a filled bowl in front of him and handed him a spoon. Nice to meet you, Naruto. Nora sat down across from him with a bowl of her own. Has never used a spoon before, Nora idly noted as she saw him discreetly observe her use her spoon before sloppily mimicking. Another thing was that he again discreetly added chunks of wind dust into his cereal as he ate from a small pouch he had in his pocket. She watched with barely hidden fascination as he casually ate the volatile material with seemingly no negative effects. Sure, there were such things as dust-infused foods, hence why there was dust in the non-perishables in the first place, but those were comprised at most 3% worth raw dust and had to be extremely carefully measured. Feeling it was a bit too quiet for her tastes, she decided to start up some conversation. "Sue, you ever pull any good pranks?" 20 minutes later. Click, 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 click. The sound of heels hitting the hard floor echoed loudly through the area as Glinda stalked through the halls of Beacon. It was her job to make sure no students were up. Standing at an impressive 6'5", she had bright blonde hair and emerald eyes set in a stern gaze. She wore a simple white shirt with keyhole neckline, a black skirt that reached to just below her chest with dull copper buttons, brown black leggings and heels, and a short black cloak with purple underside that had the bottom cut into arrow and flame patterns. This would be entirely unnecessary if Ozpin would just approve of those security cameras for the halls and classrooms. But no, that would be an invasion of their privacy, he says. Not like I'm saying to put them in their rooms and showers. We don't have the budget for it, he says, but we somehow have enough lean to fill an entire forest with hundreds of cameras instead. Respect the man, she may. But she couldn't help but question some of the decisions he's made for the security of the school. Not to mention the fact we have a comatose maiden hidden under the school that someone managed to steal half of her power from and is likely after the rest. So caught up in her thoughts on the poor security on the grounds, she was barely able to jump out of the way as an orange and red blur barreled down the hallways at high speeds. "Sorry, Professor Goodwitch," the unmistakable voice of Nora yelled as the blur vanished around a corner. Knowing she was going to regret it, Glinda went into the room the Orangette had just vacated to be the kitchen. She was pleasantly surprised to see nothing wrong other than a pair of used bowls and some spilled milk on the counter. Just as the stern blonde was about to move on though, she noticed a puddle forming by the non-perishables room with the door partly ajar. Walking over to the door, she nudged it open with her riding crop. As soon as her gaze landed on the absolute disaster that lay inside, her eyebrows started twitching rapidly as a vein bulged on her forehead. "That's it. We are getting those cameras if it's the last thing I do. I am tired of dealing with this shit." Chapter 2. It was nighttime at Beacon, and all through the dorm, not a student was stirring, because class left them worn. In one room specifically, rested the 3 members of Team JNPR, though not for much longer, that is for sure. Focusing on the bed to the far left, slept Lyren in his jammies, a simple green t-shirt with pink edging and black sweatpants. He was enjoying his rest, the beautiful peace and quiet that only happened during these late hours. Nora has been his friend for years now, something he wouldn't give up for anything. But dear could she be an energetic bundle of excitement. He still has nightmares about that one time she got her hands on an Atlassian mocha latte. All that property damage shiver. Unfortunately, his peaceful slumber was interrupted as his Nora Sense patent pending started blaring a DEFCON 3 alert. Leaning up on his bed, he looked around hoping it was a false alarm only to sigh deeply as he found her bed to be empty. Knowing Nora, I should be getting a new headache in 5, 4, 3, 2, and bang, 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 Ren, 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 Ren. Open the door, I got to show you something right now and I forgot my scroll. Bang, bang. There it is. Sighing again as he stood up, he nimbly moved through the small space towards the door as his other 2 teammates were woke up by the excessive yelling and banging. Yawn, what did Nora do this time? Pirha, a red-headed girl with vibrant green eyes and lightly tanned skin, asked as she rubbed her eyes tiredly. Probably just another pancake that's spoiled and we have to have a funeral for. John, a teen boy with messy blonde hair, blue eyes, and wearing an adult bunny onishi, said in a dull tone as he shoved his head under the pillow to block out the noise. Well, we're about to find out, Ren said as he grabbed the doorknob and turned it. He anticipated many things. What John suggested. Maybe she found something shiny, or perhaps she pulled a late-night prank on someone. The absolute last thing he expected was to see his oldest friend standing in the doorway, covered in bits of flour, with slightly singed pajamas, while holding a faunus child, covered in dirt with glowing red eyes and several long bushy tails wrapped around her haphazardly. Hi Ren, look what I found. Can we keep him? Can we, please? He's so cute and knows some awesome pranks. I'll make sure to feed him and take care of him. Promise. Nora rambled on at a rapid pace before calming down, muttering though we are gonna need a lot of shampoo and conditioner to herself while glancing at several patches of mud that were stuck to the tails. If they weren't paying attention before, Nora definitely had all three of her room teammates' attention now as she zipped past Ren and set Naruto down on her bed. Nora, who's that? Pirha asked cautiously as she discreetly reached for her scroll just in case. What? Her teammate of only 2 weeks just walked into their room in the middle of the night, carrying a child clearly not her own, and asked if she could keep him. If Nora just kidnapped a kid like she thought, then she was not gonna hesitate to call the cops on her ass. Oh, this it Naruto. I found him in the kitchen cupboard eating dust while I was trying to make pancakes. Ah, that reminds me, I never got any pancakes. Nora pouted as she sat down next to the dirty blonde. Scratch that, she was calling a mental ward. Did you JJ just say eating dust? John asked with a shocked face as Nora nodded happily. Yep, little guy thinks it's candy. Watch. To everyone's horror, she pulled out a small burn crystal from somewhere and popped it into Naruto's mouth before they could react. Are you crazy? Pirha yelled as she shoved Nora out of the way and forced the boy's mouth open only to see it empty. John, call the nurse. We have to. The redhead trailed off as she realized Naruto wasn't showing any signs of pain or discomfort. That couldn't be right. Checking him over, then doing so again. Pirha felt her jaw hit the floor as she realized he was perfectly fine. See? Like I said, eats it like candy, Nora said dramatically as she got up from the floor, dusted herself off, and plopped next to while draping her arm over the redhead's shoulders. But that's not, should be. How? Was all Pirha's short-circuited brain could manage to get out as it tried to process what she just saw. If you think that's mind-blowing, then watch this. Hey Naruto, I'll give you another treat if you breathe fire. To prove she meant it, Nora held out a large earth dust crystal for him to see. Nodding excitedly, Naruto turned towards the doorway since no one was there and inhaled deeply. Unfortunately, at that exact moment a certain short-stature, white-haired, blue-eyed ice queen that we all know and love decided to appear with an angry expression. Do you guys know what time it is? People are trying to slur. What the fuck? One Viscni started to nag as she barged through the open doorway in her favorite nightie only to end up screaming at the top of her lungs when she was greeted with the sight of a blazing inferno heading straight for her. When the flames died down, Team JNPR was greeted to the side of a smoking, blackened, and singed Eris now wearing the remains of her favorite nightie as she stood in the doorway with a gaping expression. Nora immediately fell to the floor laughing. Ren just sighed as he rubbed his forehead in a doomed attempt to stave off the rapidly approaching headache. John had fainted, and Pirha was still sitting on the bed with an identical expression to Whis'. Vice. I thought you came over here to what the hell happened to you? A smooth, feminine voice asked as three girls peeked through the doorway. The one who spoke had dark black hair, striking yellow cat-like eyes, and a simple black ribbon atop her head and wore a black yukata-style shirt and matching skirt, the book-loving Blake. The second girl had long blonde hair that reached to her thighs and lilac eyes wearing a simple orange shirt with a burning heart in the middle and black shorts. The murderer of Pun's Yang. The final girl was a short silver-eyed teen with black hair and red highlights, wearing white baggy pajama bottoms covered in roses and a black tank top with a heart-stylized Beowulf. Team RWBY's mascot leader Ruby. Snapping out of her daze, Vice gained a furious look on her face as she looked down at her clothes and looked up again ready to chew some heads off only to drift off back to La La Land from what she saw. Vice? Hello. Ruby walked in front of the white-themed girl and snapped her fingers several times to no avail. Following the white-themed girl's gaze, the other three members of Team RWBY quickly joined Vice as they saw Naruto sitting on the bed with a happy expression as he sat on Nora's lap, gnawing on the dust crystal she gave him once she stopped laughing. Noticing all the eyes on her, Nora scratched the back of her head with a big grin. Okay, I can so totally explain. Insert comical Batman transition with Nora's face. And that's what happened. Nora finished as she gently stroked the now sleeping Fox Faunus's head as he lay curled up on her lap. She couldn't do much else as his tails had wrapped themselves around them both tightly while she talked, leaving only one of her arms free and making them look like fluffy red mummies. I'm pretty sure the whole fighting through a horde of Beowulf's part was complete bull, but everything else does sound legit I guess, Yang said from her spot next to Ruby and Pirha, getting nods all around as Nora pouted. I'm still wondering how he got in Beacon by himself, and do it without being noticed. Those tails aren't exactly inconspicuous, Vice stated as she stood by the doorway with her arms crossed, now wearing her backup nightie while sending occasional glares at Nora. Naruto may have been the one to almost roast her alive, but it was Nora's fault for it. He was just an innocent impressionable child, and because she found him just too adorable to stay mad at, except for the eyes, those actually unnerved her a little, not that she would ever admit it, so she focused that anger on the orangeette. Oh. He told me that he had fallen asleep inside a storage crate after eating all the dust in it yesterday, and when he woke up he was here at Beacon, Nora said, only for Vice to interject. That's not possible. The next dust delivery isn't for another week, and even then, all containers are always inspected thoroughly before and after they are delivered, she explained. Silence followed her statement, causing her to look around and see all the weird looks she was getting. What? I get that you're a skni and all, but why exactly do you know the school's dust delivery schedule? Blake was the one to ask what everyone was thinking. Vice scoffed while sticking her nose into the air. Because I get my personal supply of dust delivered in the same shipments, obviously. Yeah, we get it, Ice Queen. Stop calling me that, Vice yelled. You're rich with a lot of cool stuff. Can we get back to the matter at hand? Yang drawled out, cutting Vice off before she could fall into one of her rants. Maybe they changed the shipment days cause of all the robberies lately, and they forgot to examine it due to the different times for shipping, Ruby suggested, before shrinking in on herself slightly as everyone turned to her. It's possible, Vice admitted almost reluctantly after thinking it over for a minute. Great, that's all solved. Now on to our next objective. Naruto Valkyrie needs a bath, Nora said dramatically as she pointed to the bathroom with her free hand. Sigh, Nora, you can't just adopt someone like that, Ren told her bluntly as he rubbed his forehead. I don't care, he is Naruto Valkyrie now, Nora said adamantly, wrapping her arm around the sleeping boy to reaffirm this. Nora, Ren is right. We have to take him to the proper, and she's gone, Pirha said as Nora ran into the bathroom, the sound of the door locking and several things being moved in front of it echoing through the room. This is gonna be a long night. With Glinda. The stern blonde teacher tapped her foot impatiently as she rode the elevator up. She was currently headed towards Ozpin's office, since he wasn't to be found in his room. As soon as the doors opened, she marched right into the room ready to demand those damn security cameras. only to stay quiet as she found herself facing not only the familiar gray-haired, green suit-wearing headmaster of Beacon, but also a certain drunkard huntsman she had the pleasure to deal with. "Ah, Glinda, perfect timing. I was just about to call for you," Ozpin said calmly as he sat behind his desk and sipped at a cup of hot cocoa. "Ozpin. Crow, is something wrong? Did something happen?" Glinda asked neutrally as she walked up to them. Crow may get on her nerves with his constant drinking and flippant attitude, but he wouldn't be here unless it was important. Her cameras would have to wait for now. "Nothing too bad. Sugar tits." Crow, a man with graying black spiky hair and dull red eyes, wearing a simple gray dress shirt, black dress pants, and a tattered red cloak, said as he drank from a flask. Glinda barely restrained a growl as she glared at the man, her eyebrow already twitching slightly as she tightened her grip on her riding crop. "Our little visitor from the Vale has finally arrived." And just like that, all the anger on her face vanished, replaced with a serious curious look faster than most could blink. "He's here? Where?" Ozpin sighed as he rubbed his temple. "That's actually why we needed to call you. We lost him." Kriak. Both Ozpin and Crow shivered slightly as Glinda's face went completely blank, her riding crop almost bent in half from the pressure of her grip. "Excuse me." End chapter. Team Chapter 3. Team JNPR Bathroom. "That should keep them out," Nora said happily as she finished barricading the door with everything she could find, which wasn't easy considering she was still wrapped up in Naruto's tails as he clung to her side. The bathroom itself was moderately sized, with a large tub shower that had a variety of shampoos, conditioners, soaps, and body washes. The toilet sat to the left with a fluffy pink seat cover, a sink on the right with a large mirror and multiple toothbrushes, and the cabinet for towels and such which had been moved in front of the door. The barricade was quickly put to the test as the door shook from heavy knocking. "Nora, come out here so we can talk about this like reasonable adults." Pirha's voice rang through the door. "No. If we take Naruto to the cops, they'll put him in an orphanage. And you know what's been happening to the faunus in those," Nora said adamantly. "Hey, that was put to a stop," Whisa's voice called back, though it didn't hold her usual sass and conviction in it. 6 months ago, a board member of the Skni Dust Company had been caught and arrested for smuggling faunus children out of orphanages and into dust mines to act as cheap labor. It had been a huge blow to the company's image, with dozens of news sources spreading the debacle across the Four Kingdoms. Not to mention it sent the White Fang into a frenzy as many members of the now terrorist organization retaliated almost immediately. Nearly 100 suicide bombings had been committed on SDC property, with almost 24 managing to hit the Skni Manor itself. Shock Skni, the current president of the SDC, managed to spin himself off as a victim, claiming to have no clue to what his subordinate had been doing, even allowing the police to thoroughly investigate the matter, but still left much bad publicity for the company to deal with. "Okay, I get your reluctance, Nora, but we still have to notify the authorities. You'll be sent to jail if you try to keep Naruto without doing so." Ren's voice spoke this time as he tried to reason with his oldest friend. "Ren, I trust your opinion on a lot of things, but I'm sticking with my decision with this." When she finished speaking, Nora gently shook Naruto, causing him to stir. Ziziwa, groggily waking up, his tails quickly unwound themselves as he moved to rub his eyes, only not falling to the floor thanks to Nora grabbing onto him as he started to slide down. "Orange lady? It's too early. 5 more minutes." He started to drift back to sleep, but Nora gave him another shake, causing him to give her a cute glare as his cheeks puffed out. "Sorry little foxy, but you need a bath," Nora told him, causing him to drop his glare in favor of a pout, setting him onto the toilet with the seat down. She giggled softly as he continued to pout before tapping his nose with her finger. Boob. She giggled much louder at the boy's baffled expression, before going over to the tub and turning on the faucet. Running the water over her hand until it was at the right temperature, she popped the plug in and let the tub start filling as she dropped in a lavender bath bomb, which quickly filled it with purple-tinged bubbles. Bang, bang, bang. Come on, Nora. You really need to open this door right now. This time it was John who spoke. We have Panka. John, I will break both your legs if you don't shut up right now. Why yes ma'am. You do not use her favorite food against her like that, ever. Seeing the confused expression on Naruto's face, Nora simply said, my friends are being stupid, before turning the tap off since the tub was full and going back to the boy. Now come on. Time to get you out of those dirty clothes. Grabbing the bottom of his shirt, it was an easy matter of pulling it over his head and off, revealing the large black sun-like tattoo that covered the majority of his stomach. The pants on the other hand were a much bigger issue. Turns out that almost the entirety of the upper half of the back of his shorts were gone so that his tails could fit through without issue. This also meant she had to go through the tedious process of pulling each tail out one at a time, though it was interesting for her to see how all his tails were seemingly compacted together at their base into a single mass, about 5 inches or so wide, that connected them to his backside. When she did, she pulled his shorts and boxers off, cringing slightly as the horrible odor from built-up sweat and dried crap wafted into her nose, and dropping them into a pile with his shirt. Lifting the now naked child off the toilet, she brought him over to the tub and slowly set him into the water, noting how his expression changed from dread to surprise, then into confusion before settling on relaxed. By his reaction, he was probably expecting it to be freezing cold, she thought with a small frown as she grabbed a small wash rag, lathered it up, and started scrubbing. The more she learned about this kid, the more pity she felt for him. Psychologist she may not be, but to be an effective fighter, one had to be able to get a read on a person quickly, and Naruto was practically an open book for her. He was clearly an orphan, likely starved for attention based on the way he trusted her so fast despite just meeting. And judging by the faint lines of discolored skin she was finding all over his body as she washed the dirt off and his barely suppressed flinching, abused. Scrubbing his cheeks clean, her frown grew deeper as she found more tattoos underneath all the dirt and grime. 3 thin parallel lines were situated on each cheek, giving him the appearance of having whiskers. She had no idea what the sun tattoo was for, but she could guess the whiskers were there as a kind of taunt towards the boy to make him feel even less human. Shaking off the dark thoughts for now, Nora smiled as she intentionally tickled his belly while washing it, getting Naruto to giggle loudly as he squirmed. Ha 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 ha, stop it, ha ha, that tickles. Never. Dropping the rag, she started tickling him with a renewed fury, getting loud squeals of laughter from him. So focused on tickling the blonde, Nora forgot about his 9 extra appendages until one wrapped itself around her waist, causing her to pause. Oh, splash. The tail yanked her into the tub, splashing water all over the room as she went under. Resurfacing a few seconds later, she spat out the soapy water caught in her mouth before getting tackled by the fox boy. Revenge. This time, Nora was the one laughing like crazy as Naruto managed to get his small hands under her armpits and start wiggling his fingers against the ticklish areas. Flailing around wildly, Nora just managed to grasp Naruto by the waist and pull him off of her. Okay, that's enough goofing around for now. Gotta finish getting you cleaned up, Nora said as she placed the boy down on the opposite side of the tub, facing him away from her. Nora grabbed a pink bottle of shampoo in one hand while gently grasping one of the multiple tails with the other, noting to herself how the boy stiffened up slightly from the contact. She made sure the entire tail was soaked with water before squeezing a decent amount of shampoo onto the fluffy limb and started lathering it up. Repeating the process with the other 8 tails and his hair, Nora tossed the now empty bottle into the trash as she stood up and pulled the plug, allowing the water to drain from the tub as she switched on the shower. Grabbing the shower head, she pulled it off the wall, revealing the long, retractable hose as she quickly rinsed herself off before kneeling down to Naruto's height. After making sure to thoroughly wash off all of the shampoo, she reattached the shower head to the wall, switched it off, and grabbed a bottle of conditioner. This will have to sit for a little bit, so try not to move too much. Okay, she explained while rubbing the oily substance onto his head, getting a slow nod. Wonder why the other haven't tried anything yet, Nora thought as she waited for the conditioner to work, occasionally glancing at the blocked door. She had honestly expected them to try and knock the door down by now, and yet it had been completely crash. What the hell? Nora and Naruto nearly jumped out of their skin as the sound of breaking glass and yelling echoed in from the other room. Team JNPR bedroom. 15 minutes earlier. John banged on the bathroom door as everyone else minus Yang and Ruby stood behind him. Come on, Nora. We really need you to open this door right now, he yelled, only to be met with silence. We have Panka. John, I will break both of your legs if you do not shut up right now. Why yes ma'am. John stuttered out, backing away from the door so fast that he bumped into one of the beds and fell over. I told you that would not work, Ren said with a dull look as he watched Pirha help the floundering blonde to his feet. Well, it was the only idea I had left. Now what do we do? John asked. We could break the door down, Yang suggested while walking in the room, Ember Celica now on her wrists, Ruby right behind her with Crescent Rose in its compact state. No, we can't, Vi said. All the doors are reinforced for safety and privacy. You'd risk hurting the child to do so. Yang and Ruby deflated at this. Sorry Cressy, no fun for you tonight, Ruby told her weapon with a pout as she down on Nora's bed and started rocking it like a baby, not noticing the odd looks she was getting from everyone except Yang. Maybe we should say we have Pan. Already tried that. Didn't end well. John cut the bodacious blonde off, getting her to snap her fingers. Everyone paused as they heard laughter and splashing coming from the bathroom. For a minute or so, they just stood there in silence as they heard the happy squeals. Pirha was the first one to snap back to reality, sighing to herself as she walked over to her bed and grabbed her scroll. This action snapped the rest of the group out of their trance and made them all look to her as she started rifling through her contacts. Pirha, what are you doing? Ruby asked. What we should have done from the start. I'm calling Professor Goodwitch and reporting this. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Blake asked in her normal casually sarcastic tone while glancing at the clock hanging on the wall. I'm sure she'll understand once I explain the situation, Pirha said firmly as she found the teacher's number and hit the call button. Ring. Everyone found themselves watching with bated breath as the scroll rang. Seconds crawled by as each ring sounded out. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, there was a soft clicking as the scroll connected and Glinda's face appeared on screen. Hello, Glinda. Goodwitch is currently unable to answer at the moment. Please leave a message after the beep. Beep message box is full. Damn it, Pirha grumbled as she closed the scroll and plopped onto her bed. Well, Professor Goodwitch is a very busy person. She's probably just enjoying a good night's rest as we speak. With Glinda. Of all the bonehead, dumbus, idiotic things you could have done, you lost him, Glinda yelled as she towered over the cowering Crow and Ozpin. And now, Glinda, there is a perfectly reasonable explanation, Ozpin stuttered with his hands held up in surrender as he tried to pacify his raging subordinate. Don't you reasonable explanation this, you will get off your lazy, hot cocoa drinking ass, get out there, and fix this mess right now. Without giving either of them a chance to speak again, Glinda flicked her riding crop at them and the two men were sent flying out of the nearest window with a scream. Taking a few deep breaths, the busty blonde teacher heard a slight beeping coming from her pocket and pulled out her scroll to see she had missed a call. "What in Am's name does Ms. Nikos need at 3 o'clock in the morning?" she asked herself before shaking her head and refocusing on the current situation. Back to the others. "Yeah, you're probably right. Well, I guess the only thing left is to just wait it out," Yang said while clapping her hands together, and started walking to the door. "I'm going to call it a night for now. Not like the solution to this is going to just come waltzing in the door." And she was right. The answer did not come in through the door. Crash, what the hell? It came in through the window. Everyone was baffled as they stared at the two men who had just crashed through Team JNPR's dorm window and onto the floor in a tangled mess of limbs. One everybody recognized immediately as the headmaster of Beacon Academy, Ozpin, while only two of the group knew who the second man was. "Uncle Crow!" Ruby and Yang yelled in sync as the two men untangled themselves and stood up. "Hey ya brats, how's it going?" Crow asked casually, like he didn't just come flying into the room via window, only to get glomped by the two girls as they started talking at the same time. "What are you doing here? Did you miss me? When did you get here? Are you gonna teach me a new move? You wouldn't believe what happened in the last hour. We gotta show you some." Crow covered both of their mouths with his hands, effectively muting them. "Sorry. Would love to stay and chat but me and Ozzy here have a job to do," he told them bluntly before pulling his hands back. "He is correct," Ozpin said as he dusted himself off and accepted his cane from Pirha with a nod of thanks. "We have to get going, but may I ask what you all are doing up at this hour, and why is Miss Valkyrie not present?" "She's barricaded in the bathroom, giving a bath to a Faunus kid she found on campus and now wants to adopt," Blake told them bluntly, getting blinks of surprise. "He wouldn't happen to be about this tall, blonde, 9 red tails, and love to eat dust, would he?" Crow asked while holding his hand at hip height, getting baffled looks from all the teens. End